Welcome back to Mr. Wicklam's virtual math classroom. Today what we're going to be looking at is a new unit called Number Sense, and our lesson today is on place value and writing numbers. Most of you have done place value before, either through grade 3 or through grade 4, and what place value is we assign where a number is in relation to the order of the other numbers. So what I mean by that is that when we look at this number of 65,321, what we're looking at is I've underlined the 3. Now, is that in the ones position? That is the question that I am asking you. Now, many of you will probably say to me, now, Mr. Wicklam, come on, that's pretty obvious. But for some of you, you may not know. So we're going to go through it one more time. And what we're going to do is it's just a little simple review. So when we look at place value and we look at numbers, what we want to do is we always want to start on the right hand side. So we always want to start with the 1. Now, when we're looking at place value, as we go from right to left, the place value gets bigger. The value of the number gets bigger. So when we look at the 1, it is in the ones place. Okay? And so when we say 1, that means we have 1 of something. We look at the 2, it is in the tens place, which means that we have 20 of something. So I'm going to write that just down below. So we have 1. So if we were adding all of this up, this is what we would be having. So when we look at the 3, I asked you the question, is it in the ones place? Well, obviously you can tell me that it's not in the ones place. It is in the hundreds place. And so the value of that would actually be 300. Okay? So again, like I said, we're getting bigger as we move on. So the 5 is actually in the thousands place. So if we were to write that value out, it would have a value of 5,000. And the 6, now when we go from thousands, we make a little bit of a leap and we actually add the 10 in there. So when we have this, we have 10,000. So it's in the 10,000 place value. Now what is the value of the 6? So that would be 60,000. Now when we write this number out here, 65321, basically what we're doing is it's a short form of this addition equation. Okay, because if we add up the addition equation, we just simply get 62531. That's what it equals. And so what we're doing is, again, we're just looking at simple place value. Okay, now like I said, as we move from the right to the left, the numbers get bigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this number, and I apologize, I'm going to draw a little line here to kind of separate these questions. I'm sorry. Now, as you can see, I've drawn an underline, and I've underlined the 1. And now in your head, what I want you to think is I want you to think of what that place value is. So like I said, as we move from the right to the left, the place values get bigger. So we know that right here, and always, if you're stuck on this, always start on the right and go through it. Okay, that's the ones. And that's what you do. You do that in your head. That's the ones, that's the tens. I'm just going to use short form. So that's the hundreds, 1,000, 10,000. So we move up, we go to 100,000, and then after we get past 100,000, we go to million. So that underlined 1 is actually in the million place value. Now, let me ask you a question. If we were to move on from that million and we were to add a number, let's say right here, what place value, looking from what we've done, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, it kind of starts over again. 10,000, 100,000, millions, so that could be like the 1 million. What do you think this would be? If you said 10 million, that is the exact place value of that. It is in the 10 million spot. If we were to add another number in here, judging from previous histories, 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, which is the 3, the 2 would be in the 100 million. So that's kind of how we go. We go from ones, tens, hundreds. We start over, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. Start over, million, 10 million, 100 million. Okay? So that's a basic introduction into place value, and that's probably what you're going to notice in your book, because it's going to be underlining a certain number, and what you need to do is you need to be able to give the place value. So what I did is I took it and I wrote it out as a sum, as a addition problem equation, and this number right here, if we can write it like that, it saves us the time of doing this all the time. That's why we write numbers like this, so we don't have to use the addition equations all the time. So what we are going to do is I've created a chart, because you're going to see this in your work today. And what I've done is I did this chart. So as you can see, always start again. If you're ever stuck, always start from the right, because the right, as we know, is the smaller number. It's the smaller place value. So when we look at this number, 624,382, well, the 2, where does that go? Well, it goes into the ones. Put the 2 in the ones column. Okay. What's the 8 go? Well, the 8 is in the 10 spot. So we have 8 tens. The 3 is in the 100 spot. 300s. The 4 is in the 1,000 spot. The 2 is in the 10,000 spot. And the 6 is in the 100,000 spot. Now, let's say for all intents and purposes, I add a 5 in front of that. Where would the 5 go? Well, as we've seen earlier, and I'll allude to it, in ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000, million. So that 7th digit is the million spot. That's how you would fill out the chart. You are going to see something like that in your book. Okay? Always, always, always start with the ones. Okay? If you start with the ones, then that way it doesn't matter what you see. You could see 18. And as long as you start with the ones and start on the right hand side, you're going to be just fine. Now, one other thing that you are going to see in your book is you are going to see where they want you to give what the value is of each digit. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through that. Okay, so you see this number that we have before you, 1357864. Now what we want to do is we want to give what the value is. So what we're going to do is we're going to give a number value, and then we're going to write it. Okay, so when you look at 4, because it's in the 1 spot, correct, the value of 4 is simply 4. That is what its value is. Okay, I'm just going to put a line in between here again, just to kind of separate it a little bit. So its value is 4. Now, when we're looking at the 6, okay, and what is its value? Well, it is 6 tens. 6 times 10 is 60. Okay, so 6 tens. The 8 is in the 100 spot, and so what we are going to do is we are going to use that, and the 8's in the 100 spot, so you have 8 hundreds. Okay, so you know how to write 100. Now you have 8 of them, so 800. Because trust me guys, you are going to see this in your book, and you're going to want to know what the values are. Okay, now we move over to the thousands column, so you have 7 thousands. Okay, notice I'm adding a 0 each time. No 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay? 10,000. How many zeros am I going to add? I'm going to have 4 zeros. So 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? 100,000 spot. How many zeros am I going to add after the 3? Well, look at the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to have 5 zeros after that. 300,000. Now what's the value of this? So this is in the million spot. So if it's in the million spot, I'm going to add 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes what people will want you to do is they want you to separate it using commas. That's fine, but for right now, I just really want you to get the habit of actually marking in the 5 zeros. Now, if we actually had to write this out, and we actually are looking for what the written value is, and because you are going to have to write it out, you'd have 4, 60. How many hundreds? 800. You look at it and just say it in your head and write out what you say in your head. 7,000. What do you have here? How many? So 10,000s. So what we're going to say is, if it's easy if when you put a comma in there just in front of the 3 zeros. Okay? So you put a comma in front of the 3 zeros, it kind of splits it up. So the 3 zeros represents thousands. Okay? So you have 50,000. So 50,000. Again, put a comma in between and that separates it. So you have, how many hundred thousands do you have? You have 300,000. Okay, 300,000. That's how much you have. Now, we go back to here again. Remember, kind of starts over, right? So we kind of go back to the ones. So with this, you would have 1 million. One other thing that you're going to see in your book, and this is the thing that I'm going to end off with, is that you are going to see where it gives you the words. Okay, so it's going to give you number words, and this is what, in all intents and purposes, when I 1,300,000, 50,000, those are number words. Okay, now what it's going to do is it's going to give you the number words, and what you have to do is you have to actually write out the numerals. Numeral is just a big fancy word for numbers. That's what you have to do. You have to write out the numbers. So when you read number words, read it from left to right, as you normally do, and then write out the numbers that you see. So when you're looking at place value, you're going from right to left. When you're reading number words, you're going from left to right. So let's take a look. So we have 245 million. So if I said we had 245, how would you write that? You would probably go like this. 245. It's just that simple. Now notice I have a comma. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that comma and we're going to put it after that. 245 million. Now, let's move on. What do I have? 311,000. How are we going to write that? How do we write 311? Well, 311,000. And then at the end, we're going to cover the last 3 of our place values, and it says 12. And we simply just write 12. Now, if you do this, that's not correct. Okay? Because you still have to have the hundreds place value. Is there any hundreds here? No. So what we need to do is we need to put a 0 in front of that. So 0, 1, 2, and that gives us 12. And that's the proper way to do that. Now, you are going to have the pages up on the board. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you wish to watch the video again, please do so. But what you are going to have to do is please just be aware of place value and be aware of numerals and numbers. This is Mr. Wicklum signing off.